Welcome, everybody, to Broadcast Team Alpha, where we bring you cutting edge conversation while exploring the quantum possibilities. And I suggest that you buckle your seatbelt. Tonight, we are exploring the cosmic puzzle where brilliance meets curiosity in our star-studded, and that's an understatement, roundtable discussion where we're going to be talking about decrypting UFOs and the ET Enigma. We invite you to join our constellation of distinguished guests as we embark on this cosmic journey through the mysteries of the universe. We have people here who are renowned researchers, authors, seasoned ufologists, and each guest brings a unique perspective to the table, shedding light on the enigmatic phenomena that has captivated humans for centuries. I just want to send a shout out to our friends over at the Conscious Awakening Network. We are streaming over there now. And I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting our channel. Thank you for your super chats. And without any further ado from me, Augie, please, let's talk about our guests.
Yes, this is going to be wonderful. We have assembled some of the sharpest people on the planet to talk about what, why, and maybe how about the UFO and the extraterrestrial issue. Anything, absolutely anything is on the table. The nuts and the bolts about UFOs, extraterrestrial technology, ET, mental capabilities, spiritual capabilities, and wisdom that the extraterrestrials may have, government, ET cooperation, ET dangers, fake alien invasion, disclosure, and what about the cover-up? And anything you can think of is on the table. And we have with us, I want to mention everybody that we have with us, and I'm going to start on the left as it was on the flyer that was made up for it. And I'm going to start with Dan Willis, good friend of mine, and Christopher Harmon, Grant Cameron, Laura Eisenhower, Constance Victoria Briggs, Geraldine Orozco, and Ella LeBain. And I'd like each one of you to kind of mention a few things about yourself. You know, what you do, mention your books, and also in your talks, when you mention something that you're talking about, if you have written about it, refer back to the books. That will help the listeners to go and find more information about what you talk about. So keep mentioning your books there, because that is a good reference for it. And also let people know how they can get a hold of you, and then we should just start. And Nori, you got the ball. Uh-oh.
Augie, did you want to go around the order of the flyer again and have everybody just introduce themselves, and then I'll start the question.
I did. I thought I did. Okay. So that must not have come through then. All right. We have Dan Willis.
Right. So Dan, tell us a little bit about what's going on with you. Yeah. And I know there's all kinds of new things happening.
Oh, hi. Greetings, everyone.
Welcome.
Yeah, some exciting developments happening in the last couple of years. I got involved in 1969 with my military experience as a top secret military witness, testified in Washington back in 2001. I've been extensively over the decades, studying all these different witness testimonies, secret space program people, documents, and everything. And, coming to my own perspective, in exactly 2 years as of yesterday, my dear friend Elena Danan introduced me to her contact's younger brother, who's a scientist that's currently on Mars right now. And in the 1980s, I used to work with quartz crystals with IBM's head scientist, Dr. Marcel Vogel. And so we could ask him some questions. So I've got about 180 pages of questions and answers, and I'm working with the science team. We're putting together some technology based on the information, and it's very exciting what we're learning.
Wonderful.
Wow.
So go ahead, Augie, because I don't
Yeah.
have the flyer.
Yeah, we have a next one up. Christopher Harmon, you're working with MUFON, so tell us a little bit about you.
Yes, I'm Christopher Harmon. I work with MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. I'm also an abduction counselor for people who've had been taken or have had experiences. I also do a psychic viewing, healing, and influencing, and I'm a paranormal investigator on the side. And at times, you can also see me doing photography work as well.
Wow, nice. Welcome.
All right. Then Grant Cameron is with us. Tell us a little bit about you. Maybe also mention your latest book and let people know where they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, my name is Grant Cameron. I had experience in 1975, which I had no interest in the subject. I sort of fell down the rabbit hole. I wanted to find out who knew what was going on, because I didn't really know what was going on. So I chased the Canadian government. I chased, very important, the former chairman of the board of the Institute for Defense Analysis for about 8 years, and then chased the president of the United States, and started chasing the intelligence people, trying to find someone who had the answer. 2012, I had an experience. I call it the download experience that told me consciousness is involved. It came with absolute certainty, and it made a shift away from the nuts and bolts and the presidents and the conspiracy and all that kind of stuff to study consciousness. I've written on my latest book, I guess, is the UFO sky pilots. 36 people who have flown the craft claim they've flown the craft. All tell me basically the same story. And I've got 3 more books coming out on disclosure, which is the subject I hate the most, but I keep getting dragged into it. I've done 20 books and 5 on disclosure, a number from the consciousness perspective I've done on the paranormal inspiration, the whole idea of music, the involvement of music in UFOs. And my main interest, I would say now, is the nature of reality. What's really going on? This is, to me, is much more complex than UFOs. There's something that tells us that this phenomenon is telling us there's something about reality that we really don't understand.
Yep. Thank you.
Welcome.
And Laura Eisenhower.
Hey there. So I'm Laura Eisenhower, and yeah, I feel I was like just, I guess you could say, sort of born into it, just at least trying to process and understand. Um, oh gosh, everything related to ETs and UFOs and our governments, and um, I was recruited to go off planet. I was pre-targeted, and this all relates to the alternative 3 scenario that took place during the Eisenhower administration. So I've been researching and going through a lot of experiences that have helped me to shed light on what may have happened during his administration and events following that take us into potential ET government treaties. So I've noticed that there are some false narratives being steered. So a lot of my path has been about bringing about the research that I've uncovered and ran into very synchronistically to reevaluate and look at this question and what really took place. So I get into depth about that in my book called Awakening the Truth Frequency, and my experiences with the recruitment to go off planet, how that relates to this alternative 3 scenario and timelines, and something that took place that isn't very talked about that would help us to understand the different projects and programs that came into the United States, and where there was a surrender agreement, and how a lot of false information is covering some of that up. And so I've just been devoted to bringing about truth. So Awakening the Truth Frequency is about us understanding what it means to be true to ourselves, what our junk DNA is really made of. So I go a lot into galactic history. I focus on the Sophionic energy and the corrections, particularly to the planetary grid network. And I talk about a lot of the dark technologies that were put in place to put things in reversal and take us down a trajectory we don't need to go down. And that's kind of the gist of it and what my book's about, and my own personal story and crazy adventures.
Welcome, Laura. So good to have you.
Thank you. And then Constance Victoria Briggs, you just have a new book out, and tell us a little bit about yourself and how to get a hold of you.
Okay, so hi everybody. Basically, I got started writing about topics out of the ordinary for most people. I've written books on angels. I've written a book on who and what God is. I've written books on the unseen world. And as of late, I've been working on books dealing with our galactic history and galactic mysteries. And the way I got started in all of that is because I've had a lifetime of, I guess you would say, paranormal experiences. And one thing led to the other. And so I wanted to help people to understand that there is more to our world than we've been told, that we're more than we've been taught, and that I wanted to sort of grab hold to my interest in life in the cosmos and whether or not we were alone or alone in the universe. Once I discovered that we are not, and I had proof from my spirit guides. It's a really long story. Anyway, I've decided to help people to learn about life in the universe and unseen life here on Earth, and it just kind of goes on and on. But that's my mission, is to help humanity to understand that there's more going on to our universe than we've been taught. And I've been delving into research for years and years and years. I have a huge database of information, and that's pretty much my goal, is to let people know my latest book is Earth's Galactic History and its Extraterrestrial Connection, where I go into things like the history of UFOs and going back to ancient times and how long they've been visiting and possibly who they are and what they want. I talk about a cosmic freeway, how UFOs are traveling to Earth. I give interesting experiences in that book of astronauts and cosmonauts and others that have had contact and extraterrestrial experiences out in the while they were working out in the cosmos. And let's see, I talk about human origins, whether or not we are a product of alien intervention. I talk about the theories that we were created, quite possibly via primates and alien DNA. I talk about whether the Earth was terraformed or not by extraterrestrials and give theories on how they did it and why they would have done it. And I talk about galactic hierarchies, the councils out in the universe that are running things and who they are and their goals for humanity. And I also get into whether or not we are close to a time where we're going to have a first contact, even though we all know we've had first contact. But I mean first contact with the masses of people. And I talk about us getting closer to the day where we will have open disclosure. So that's what my latest book was about. And
That's good. That's
yeah.
good. All right. That's good. And then Geraldine Orozco. Tell us a
Hi.
little bit about you, your what you're doing for service to people, and how to get a hold of you.
Yes, so my name is Geraldine Orozco. I'm an epigenetic psychotherapist, and I'm a lifelong contactee. My work began going into deep meditation, and as a result of that deep meditation for several months, I had a conscious contact experience in which children were introduced to me as hybrid. This experience resulted in psychic abilities, and that led me into the research of our multidimensional body, which then led me into the question of what is the soul and how does the soul play a role in hybridization, or how do we exchange our life force with interdimensional consciousness, essentially. And that took me deep into the rabbit hole of the hybridization program, into looking at our original root race. How did we emerge? Are we hybrids? Is the human race hybrid? Do we communicate and connect with interdimensional beings? And what is the nature of that? If I have a hybrid mother.com, which is my support group, it's an international support group. My research around hybridization and how it goes down family lineages for many generations is one of the primary areas of interest for me. And essentially how we develop the cultivation of our life force bodies in order to ascend and be able to master these experiences in many dimensions, or at least become aware of them. So that's my area of expertise. And I've served people with my services and my research. Thank you.
Sounds good. Wonderful. And then last but not least, Ella LeBain.
Hi, thank you for having me. I have a book series called Who's Who in the Cosmic Zoo, and there's 5 books available right now. My 6th book should be out by the end of this year, which is called Heaven's Witness, on connecting the dots to the Mazarot and end time prophecies. In 1995, I was living in Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, which is the Gulf of Mexico, and I used to go to the beach in the evening to watch the sunset, which with my neighbors, which is kind of a common thing that everybody does. And after the sun went down, I heard some rumbling, and long story short, basically saw a football-sized, disc-shaped silver craft emerge out of the Gulf of Mexico about 100 yards from the shore. And I was gobsmacked. I mean, it was just, I had no idea what was going on. I was in shock. But anyway, I watched it take off, go into the sky and become like a star. And then I saw like it looked like it opened up a portal and it disappeared. Well, I never heard of MUFON up until that point, but then that's when I was introduced to MUFON because a friend of mine told me that the local MUFON had received 350 calls that night from other people who had witnessed the same craft from different angles all around the shoreline. So that got me started down some deep rabbit holes, and I needed to know what was going on. And so at the time, I was doing astrology, professionally, teaching classes in a metaphysical bookstore, ETs, aliens, or angels, trying to discern this cosmic mystery. And fast forward 2010, I had a near-death experience, and I met Yeshua. So that wasn't the first time I met him. That was actually the 6th time. I met him in Israel. I was educated in Israel. So he's kind of been with me most of my life, all my life, actually. I'm Jewish. Don't hold it against me, please. But Jews are not supposed to believe in Jesus, but he is very much alive and real. And so, long story short, I was writing this book based on the classes, ETs, aliens, or angels, and he told me to rewrite the book with him in it. So I did, and it's turned into 6 books. And one thing that came out of that was I stopped doing astrology because he showed me the system, the binary system that is here, which I'm going to share with you in pictures from the space telescope soon with my share screen thing here to prove that we're not alone, that there's not only ships, big, huge, gigantic spaceships around the sun, but also exoplanets. So we can discuss, where they come from. I mean, I have my ideas that that they're connected to this binary system, which I call the Nemesis Nibiru system, which is intersecting in our solar system. And everybody thinks it's just one planet, but it's like a system. It's 7 planets that orbit our binary twin. So that's why I stopped doing astrology, because astrologers are not playing with a full deck. No offense on anyone who's still looking at that doesn't mean we're talking on a full moon. So this is this was my big revelation. So, but that doesn't mean, that things don't still work. But what it does mean, what my main point is is that the influences that are coming from the sun and this other system seems to trump and overwhelm all the usual, astrological influences that we used to live by, like Mercury retrograde or full moon or, even a solar eclipse. And we saw on this recent solar eclipse that our sun was eclipsed by two objects, not just our moon. So I have.
Okay.
Welcome. Oh my
Thank
goodness, this
Thank you.
so exciting, so exciting. So I'm just going to put out our old our former, not he's not old, co-host Tom used to call it a crayon question, just kind of an opener question. So I'm just going to throw it out there that considering the recent surge of UFO sightings and now the government just beginning to do disclosure, what do you think is the most compelling piece of evidence supporting the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence and why? Anybody want to jump in and open that one up?
Anybody?
Well, I would say that the fact that multiple people, and I know I'm not alone in this, have witnessed with their own two eyes craft coming and going out of our oceans, that there's something happening from inside the planet. I think that is evidence that there is an alien presence coexisting with us.
I can
Yeah.
add that in 1969, I was receiving a official U.S. Navy secret report of a USO, unidentified submerged object coming out of the ocean off the coast of Alaska that was going to Chief of Naval Operations. And that was official, and that started my questioning. So yeah, there's either alien bases on the bottom of our ocean, which I believe are highly likely, or inner Earth exchanges or something of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree. And also, I want to connect a dot that it's in the prophecies. That was another big draw for me, was that this was written down 3,500 years ago, that this was going to happen at this time, at the end of this age. That's what the word end times relates to. It relates to the processional ages, and we're coming to the end of the age of Pisces. We're very close. So all this stuff is supposed to emerge, and that's what apocalypse in Greek is: revelation, disclosure, and we're supposed to get all this understanding at the end of the age. But it's also going to come out of the earth. The prophecy says that there's going to be an alien invasion. So I know that you mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast about fake alien invasions, and then there's conspiracies that the government was going to do this and kind of stage something. But the prophecy says that there's going to be a real alien invasion that comes from inside the earth. It's very specific. So just wanted to throw that in.
Wow.
That's good.
Yeah. Christopher, I saw you had your hand up.
Yes, I can kind of add to this topic. I've been a star seed since I was a kid, and just recently had another abduction or taken a few days ago. And then I can say that, we talk about the fake alien invasions and we talk about, all the disclosure and everything. But I think we, the people who live this, we are the proof. We are the proof that that this does exist, and our stories are what's going to carry this forward. And with our stories, eventually we can be our own disclosure in a way.
Yes.
Well, we
I can
shouldn't
jump.
put all our eggs in one basket and depend on the government for giving it to us. I agree with Christopher. Disclosure is going to come from us and the whistleblowers.
Yeah. And Grant, what do you think on that?
Yeah, the best evidence is my evidence. I saw something. So when I tried to do a manuscript of that, I remember the publisher told me, Mr. Cameron, you may believe in this kind of stuff, count me among the unbelievers. And I realized that sightings don't go anywhere. I had my sighting, so I knew from that moment on. People can say whatever they want. I know what I saw. I saw it a number of times. I was within 50 feet. I was going to jump on the thing at one point. And that really doesn't go anywhere. The things that have sort of impressed me, because what I did is I spent my whole time trying to find high level people that basically confirmed it. So the first was Wilbert Smith, who ran the Canadian government UFO program. Everybody always makes this into an American story. The Canadians were miles ahead of everybody else. 1950, the Canadians wrote a top secret memo that is still, there's no denial. This is in the files of the Department of Transport. Wilbur Smith said, I made discreet inquiries through the Canadian Embassy in Washington, D.C. I was told the following things. Number one, flying saucers exist. It's the most highly classified subject in the United States. There's a small group headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush trying to figure out what's going on. The subject is of tremendous significance to the Americans. And we were also told by the American officials, this is 1950. We were also told by American officials that other things might be associated with the flying saucers, such as mental phenomena. So from there, I went to Dr. Eric Walker, who was the former chairman of the board of the Institute for Defense Analysis, which was where DARPA comes from. This is where Jason comes from. Walker was the head guy. We contacted him in 1987 about him being at a set of briefings at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He said, I was there. Yeah, so what? Nothing's going to change. Why should we change the rules to satisfy your curiosity? And so I found that very significant that we talked to him, and he was in a position where he confirmed basically the fact that this is all for real. Go study something else. You're never going to get the answer. And this whole idea that it's just curiosity, and we're not. It's the whole idea of the military-industrial complex that they're basically going to make weapons out of this, and they're going to use it for whatever they're going to use. They're not really interested in educating people. So I went to there, and then I went. The other things I had is 2016. I was told by Chris Bledsoe. This is before Tom DeLonge came and the whole New York Times article. I was told in 2016 by Chris Bledsoe that the big man in Washington, whose name was Jim Samivan, said a number of high-level officials are going to come forward and they are going to say UFOs exist and they are going to force disclosure. And the biggest event that's ever happened in the UFO world is 2017. And the New York Times did the article that said, yeah, the government is actually working on UFOs. And that's what changes everything, is that once you get the government making an admission or you get the New York Times saying it's real, that shifts the consciousness, which is the important part to me. And the last I would point out is the interview that was done by James Lukatsky, who was the guy that ran the DIA program from 2008 to 2010. He made a number of very specific claims. He claimed that his book was being reviewed by the American government, and this was official, that he had got approval from the American government. And he said quite clearly, we have a craft and we've been in it. I can't say anything about what's inside it, except that if you knew what was inside the craft, the rest of the story would be primitive. He also said psychic phenomena is part of the phenomena. He said Men in Black is real, and all everybody's ever thought about when his comments was the fact that we have a craft and we've been in it. He said he's going to get approval for the rest of it, and so you have this disclosure coming out. And I've just been I can't talk too much because I'm not the guy putting the money in. There's a major project. We've been contacted by the government. The government keeps doing this disclosure thing. And I've done 4 books on disclosure, and I just hate the subject. But I've got another one where we've been contacted by very high level officials, including former director of the CIA, including former head of NSA, who is they're claiming, and it started, they're going to drop the story. So we'll see where that goes. They just keep doing this circle over and over again. They're going to tell us what's going on. And this leaking, and the last book that I'm going to do is called Drip Drip. So they keep doing this thing about dripping this and dripping that and giving 10 different stories so nobody knows which direction to go in. Everybody's bumping into each other and everybody's got different stories. And it may be another one of those, but definitely a film producer who's flying around and engaging these people. And it's all being caught on film. It's all being filmed.
Yeah, Grant, isn't it amazing when we know that many different governments in many different ways have already confirmed that UFOs are real and the extraterrestrial presence is, and we're still running around asking, are we alone?
Yeah. Wilbur Smith actually wrote a letter in 1959, which I put on the internet a number of times, where he said, this is 1959. He's just replying to somebody talking to him from a researcher from that part of Canada. He said, I can tell you that every government in the world has been officially notified of the existence of the people from elsewhere. What they do is up to them, and nothing you're going to do is going to change this. And basically said, and this is 1959, he said every government in the world has been contacted and told the true story. And I guess they're all playing the game of trying to figure it out for themselves so they get the military advantage, because that's what it comes down to. It comes down to number one rule is money, number two rule is money, number three rule is money, and the military controls all the money and the research funds, and it's all about weapons to them. It's about how we're going to kill people, how we're going to get the advantage over all the millions and billions of people that we think are our enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yes.
I want to add something to what you just said, and that is that there is another body that is influencing why disclosure is not 100%, and that is the Galactic Federation. So I know people laugh at that when you say that, but so there's another country, another nation, another big major whistleblower that seemed to have gone below the radar in 2020 because everybody was distracted by the pandemic. And that was the retired Israeli space chief, Chaim Eshed, who basically came out and said, we're not alone. The United States and Israel have been in working agreements with the Galactic Federation, and they feel that you, meaning the public, are not ready for this information yet. So Israel, I also heard from others like Bill Burns, who this out in 2015, that Israel wanted to disclose, and they were told not to. So this dovetails into what you were saying, especially about the space weapons. And I have some slides about this that goes back to the Reagan administration from 1983. So one of my things that I'm proving and showing through executive orders is that Reagan put out an executive order in 1983 after IRIS, which was the photo that the NASA probe went to the edge of our solar system and brought back a picture. I can show it to you when you tell me it's ready. I'll do the screen share of Nibiru. We call Nibiru Planet X. It has many names. But once he saw that, that's when he went, okay, now everything needs to be covered up. And it got covered up in this executive order that went under national security. And that's when he, with his own words, dubbed the Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI program, Star Wars. He called it the Star Wars program, which was basically putting weapons up in space. So even though the narrative to that was given through the media was all this was happening to protect America from Russia and China, what wasn't being said was that they were preparing for a space war with an alien presence. So I unpack and prove this, and it's really hard to deny that this is happening right under our noses. But and one of my other conclusions is that the UFO cover-up and the Nibiru cover-up are one and the same. They're intricately connected through these executive orders. And when I did this research, the executive orders get rolled in because, especially if they come under national security, the succeeding presidents usually don't question it because they're on an as need to know basis anyway, so they just put it forward and they may add to it. So I traced it from Reagan all the way to Obama, and when Obama became president, he was petitioned by all these organizations to disclose what was happening with Nibiru, that it was coming in. And if I'm going to go back to the 80s, if you guys remember that famous trio, Reagan, Gorbachev, and Thatcher. And when they saw that photo of Nibiru approaching this solar system, that's when they all went into this global warming, climate change stuff, because they had to justify that they were putting all this tech, and I have pictures to prove this, all this tech up in space, that this was happening for a humanitarian, a good reason to retard the warming. So, I mean, you don't go a day where you don't go outside and look at the sky being chemtrailed. I mean, that's
Yep.
just happening on our level, our atmosphere. But this is stuff that's like, put up there in space all around the planet. So there's a lot of lasers and Star Wars type stuff, and they've been experimenting with it recently. So this is
That go
something we're hearing for.
that goes along with the one of the high-ranking administrators on NASA. He, in a speech, said that there will be an alien invasion before the year 2025. And within, I think, a couple of days, he was put out to pasture. They didn't fire him; they retired him with pay so they could control him.
Wow.
I think probably some of you have seen that article that came out. He said before 2025. That's this year.
Well,
So
look at what just happened.
yeah,
Like we're not out of the woods yet. I mean, we may have like a little pregnant pause, but wait till the summer. There's a lot gonna, and I've heard stuff about May, so I don't know. I don't make predictions, but if
yeah.
you look at the prophecies, okay, and that's something not to be ignored because this stuff was written down years ago and it's all coming true, like it's unfolding like a script. I mean, the cast of characters are exact. They might have changed their names, like Persia, ancient Persia is now Iran, but they're still the same entity. They're still the same grouping. It's still the same powers and principalities and princes. So they call them princes that rule over these different regions of the earth. And that's why there's this cosmic war going on. So, whether it's nation against nation or, grouping or religion versus another religion or you name it, gender, it's a Machiavellian agenda to divide and conquer us. Okay.
They're doing.
They know that we would be very powerful if we got united. Okay. However, if we all got on the same page and all plugged into some common denominator, we would be a force to be reckoned with. And that's what they're trying to dismantle in us by keeping
Yep.
us all divided over stupid stuff, big stuff, you name it. It's all
I
there,
don't think they have to try very hard. From what I can see,
Yes,
they don't have to try very hard.
exactly.
Division is the name of the game these days. It's about me. It's the main message to me is oneness versus separation. Once you go into separation, then it all breaks apart. And that's what the
Yep.
people on board the craft said. You become one with the craft, and whatever you think is what the craft does, and you can go from here to the other side of the universe instantaneously. And it's all about this idea of separation. But you got to remember that the beings are also in the cover up thing. They're doing this thing because you got to remember who you actually are. We didn't come here to learn what UFOs are. We came here to learn lessons. So it really doesn't matter what's really happening. The same as Martin Luther, the famous theologian from the 15th century or whatever. They did a seance, and they brought him in, and they asked him the same question. Now we ask the question, why don't the aliens land and tell us what's going on? And what they asked Martin Luther is, why doesn't God get off his fat rear end and do something and expose himself and tell us what's going on? And he said, because doubt is what it's all about. If the doubt was removed from your life, your soul would leave and never come back. And that's what it's all about. And so I sort of say that we should acknowledge and appreciate the fact that we really don't know, and everything comes down to what can we learn from what it is, rather than when is the government going to hand us something and give us all the stuff we want. Because Eric Walker, this famous guy, the high level guy from Institute for Defense Analysis, asked us the dog car question. So when you figure it out, what are you going to do then? And he said, it's just curiosity. Admit it, you're just curious. And what's going to happen is once you figure this out, then it's just the next question. And for 99.9% of people, all this is curiosity. They just want to know. They have got no reason why they want to know. They just want to know because in like 100 years ago, we used to do seances, talk to dead people for entertainment. Now we go do sky watches and we do this kind of stuff because we've got the 2 cars, the big house, and our kids have been through college, and now we need some spiritual stuff. And we're still into this capitalist gathering of stuff, and we're gathering spiritual stuff to add on to all the physical stuff we've got. So
Yeah.
you got to remember that the fact that we don't know, because until there's awe and curiosity, there's no advance in science. Science does not advance until people become curious, and that's why I think part of the cover up from the intelligence is they want you to figure it out. They're not here to bring us freedom, democracy, Jesus, McDonald's. That's the way we do it, and they're here to get us to figure it out. They give you little clues and hints, and we struggle with ourselves to figure out what's actually going on.
Yeah, a lot of it has been figured out, and it has been written about, and it has been admitted by different people in government. And I think it is our job to claim that as truth and also spread that word to other people that will also now understand when they find out.
But
And
you have the
that's
other
what
half of the government that's putting they actually said, like Jim Semivan said, if we wanted to kill you, we could kill you. We don't do that anymore. So what they do now is they just throw mud in the water. So you got a good story. You got like I talked to Tim Taylor, who was supposedly the highest guy in NASA. I talked to him, and he talked about his download and how he gets these medical downloads, how he interacts with the beings and stuff like that. This high level guy, and you get this situation where we want to just for the sake of figuring it out, instead of trying to learn a lesson from what's actually going on, that everything, whether it's good or bad, we're gonna teach us a lesson. We got to take responsibility, whether we're responsible or not, as to if we were part of this. Did we? Because I'm big into like other stuff, like Michael Newton, the life between lives and stuff like this whole idea that we come into the world and that whatever situation we face, we planned it this way. And so the question is, why did you get into the UFO thing? What are we supposed to be doing? And rather than can we figure this thing out, it's why am I in this whole phenomena? And I've found from my own experience that I've been led, that synchronicities have happened, and I've gotten direction as to which way to go.
I'm still kind of hang on there. I'm still kind of wondering though, why is the extraterrestrials waiting? There's got to be something in their mind. And I know, Geraldine, I know I think a while back we actually talked about that, but I'm not so sure I remember what we actually talked on. Why do you think they are hanging on, waiting, and saying we are not necessarily ready when I think we are?
Well, here's the thing, and one of the things that I was just going to mention about the original question, what is the thing that we see that is showing us, demonstrating to us that this is really happening at this time? I've been leading meditation groups since about 2006, like large groups, up to hundreds of people. And one of the most incredible things that I've witnessed and experienced over these many years up until now is the number of people that are willing to come out and speak about their experiences. So I think that that number is growing from groups of 100. 70% of the people are actually raising their hands and saying, I have some kind of interdimensional experience. And that's telling us something about many things. This is very much an inside job. And I think there's been a lot of research around the fact that it's a vibrational frequency that is sustained within our organism that allows us to be in alignment to tune into these frequencies of interdimensional communication and interaction. So this is something that humanity is experiencing. Every era, the human race experiences different things. In this era that we're experiencing collectively, one of the invitations is to learn how to master your ability to navigate this interdimensional communication. What does that mean? It means to train your intuitive body to be able to communicate, to become lucid in your dream state so you can become aware of what your fractals are doing. Now we have conversations of, MK Ultras and mind control programs that have been let out since the 50s and on all these things that, the government already has been knowing for a long time and utilizing the human technology against the human in many different ways. And now it's the time for the human to become aware of these internal technologies and to have some form of self-mastery over them. So I think ET contact is something that has to do with the internal human. So the more that we talk about, we had the government hearings. I think they were more than enough disclosure in those government hearings for us to have a lot of questions and validation and confirmation about the things that a lot of humanity is already experiencing, from hybridization programs to activation of abilities when we interact interdimensionally, to the ability to walking interdimensionally, bilocating, remote viewing. All of these tools that the human has access to plays a role in our ability to access this information. So I think it's not so much that these beings are hiding out. It's that the human has to cooperate in that interaction, in that communication. It is a cultivation of the human that brings forward the human race. And the way I see this genetically is that we're talking about generations of preparation, bloodlines of humans, families that have been in contact and communication with certain groups for many generations. And really, the lesson in the contract in these generational groups that sever those ties every single time is, as Grant Cameron focused, the doubt that the human has, the fear of that unknown that continues to rise within the subconscious mind of the collective. And the invitation is that we transcend that fear in order to open up into the communication with these beings. And we are headed in that direction. We are going in that direction. Technology always mimics nature. We see artificial intelligence and the massive amounts of information that is being computed by these systems. Well, our organism has the exact same capacity. And so we need to learn how to use that technology in order to harness this. So I feel that it's within the human that the power of communication lies, and the responsibility, really, at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to respond to what Grant was saying earlier about, and also what Geraldine just said about responsibility and the lesson that we're here collectively learning, and that would be discernment. Okay, so one of the things about this age that we live in is deception. There's a lot of deception. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. And it's not that the ETs are withholding themselves. Like everyone seems to think of them as one group. And this is what I unpack in my books is that there's many different groups, and just like us, we're not all on the same page. We're not all in agreement with each other, and neither are they. They're not all the same. There's infighting between them over power, over who controls what, who gets this sphere, who gets this space, who gets the universe even. I mean, you can go on and on. And one thing I do know for sure, based on whistleblower witness reports, and that is that the draconian reptilian race that lives inside our planet does not want disclosure. So they are reckoned with. They do not want to come out in the open and say, hi, this is who we are, because, the people who have actually interacted with them have reported how monstrous, how scary, how ugly, how grotesque they look. And our military has to deal with them. Okay. So they have their own equipment and whatever it is that they need mentally, emotionally, spiritually to be able to handle that. But the fact is that this is a force that's been on this planet for millennia. Okay, they didn't just arrive. They exist here, and they're going to fight tooth and nail to hold on to this sphere that we live on. Okay, and they're a major force in blocking disclosure, especially when it comes to the American government. Okay, and even the other governments. I can't speak for other governments except maybe Israel, because I have heard things from within and not only Chaim Eshed, but other Israeli ufologists who have also, there's because Israel is known for its technology. So, and let's not forget what they've just done with the Iron Dome. And this is all part of the Star Wars program. And the UK now has their own Iron Dome technology. And of course, America funded them. So we share that technology. So, you know, we are heading into some sort of, conflagration or a World War III or something like that, that's going to bring all this stuff up out into the surface. And that's why disclosure, I may be the only one that thinks this, but we can't put all our eggs in one basket, meaning you can't depend on the US government to come out and tell you everything that they already know and that they've been covering up for 75 years, because there'd be too much Monday morning quarterbacking. They have to save face. And also it's dangerous because they're being held, by all these agreements and contracts that they have with these beings for the technology, for the weapon, the space weapons. And, the stage is being set for this end time war that I don't think anyone can deny that is happening. Okay. And it's like, who's going to be on whose side and which group of aliens are going to be with which nation. So, that's a whole conversation, but that's what we're dealing with on the exopolitical level. And it's scary, but at the same time, as we already established here, we have to work on that inner technology. Okay? So if we're right with our creator and our consciousness and all the stuff that we've been saying, then we can handle what is to come. And if we're not deceiving ourselves in thinking, because I stand in the middle of these two camps all the time, I get hit by both sides because the Christians, the Jews, they're all like in this religious spirit stuff, and they think, oh, they're just all demons, and that's a half truth. Some of them actually are, and the word demon is Greek for intelligences. So an artificial intelligence can be is neutral. It can be good or evil depending on who's pulling the strings or who's pressing the button, right? So, and then the other side is like, New Agers and everything. They want to believe that the ETs are good, like they can't be bad. You can't, because people just don't want that bubble bursted, that, oh, that they've been believing in a certain being all along. And what if they've been misled? What if they are just really great actors and actresses, that can imitate and, masquerade as a space brother and think, oh, I'm here to save you. And remember the movie? Remember the truth is stranger than fiction, where everybody thought they were here to save us, and then they ended up wanting to eat them. So, I mean, life's riddles are answered in the movies, and that's an MJ-12 thing. They made a decision back in the 1950s to insert these concepts into TV and film, and that's called soft disclosure, because they couldn't come out with hard disclosure to actually say this is this and that is that.
Yeah,
Pay attention to what's coming down in TV and film, because there's truth in it.
I like to hang on to the disclosure issue just for a little bit longer, because we're hearing that the aliens are saying you're not ready yet. I hope they're not ready for everybody on Earth to be ready, because then we will have disclosure in the year 2756. No, is there half the people that has reached the consciousness they're looking for? I know some of the New Age gurus are saying that half the people believe and understand that there's an alien presence, and the other half maybe just sitting back wondering. Is there anybody that have heard what other people? Yes, Laura, please tell us.
I've heard. I'm sorry. What was?
Yeah. What is the percentage that they are looking for? They're not looking for.
Service to others, it said, 51%, like the tipping point. But if we're talking about what we're ready or not ready for, I don't think we're ready to be lied to anymore. I don't think we're ready for any more deception. I mean, we've been invaded a long time ago. The planetary grids and my labs and the military abductions that have hijacked the benevolent encounters people have had. So there's a lot of tracking going on in order to hijack ascension and disclosure. So it has to come from us, because the more people reveal the experiences that they've had, the more we can understand the mechanisms that have been put in place to make it very, very difficult to begin to switch on these dormant levels of ourself, and how that's targeted, and how surveillance and transhumanism and a lot of the narratives being steered and the propaganda being steered in the news is to groom people into consenting, because that's what it requires. So if it can present it in a way that looks like, okay, here's the problem and we have the solution, the problem reaction solution, then people are willingly going down that road. And what I feel they say we're not ready for is the very thing that we're more than ready for. It's like saying you can stay with that abusive partner who's cheating on you, that you can't really believe is cheating on you, but you're not ready to know the truth about that person. Is that person going to be a part of the disclosure? That's vampiric. That's manipulating you. We're ready for truth. We're ready for reclaiming our dormant aspects. We're ready to understand our galactic heritage and our galactic history, so that we know that these beings are connected with us. We're related to them. But as long as we're disempowered, some faction of that species is going to be a part of a mafia group that is service to self, that wants to take advantage of that. It doesn't even matter what the species is, because as long as they're vampiric, as long as they've fallen and they've formed an alliance together, they're going to take advantage of the vulnerable, of our amnesia. And we're not ready for that anymore. And there's a lot, I think, that's being said about that, and whatever invasions might be coming, and disclosures. I agree with Grant. I mean, it has to come from us. It has to come from our experiences. It has to come from mutual love and respect, and the maturity to lay it all out on the table and discern as best as we can with mutual love and respect. And I'll leave it at that, because I know Dan had his hand up. And I don't know if that's really answering the question, but I think the tipping point has been reached. It's just the physical's catching up with it. And as long as we're still looking outside of ourselves in the physical, it'll always seem like we're never going to get there. We need to shut it all down and recognize that we're the creator forces that are writing the script for our future. And we're being duped out of our creative imagination, out of our true ability to manifest a future that we actually want. So we're ready to know that we have that power. That's the greatest conspiracy. The rest of it is secondary compared to how much we've allowed our creative channels to be infected by something outside of us that we're enabling, because it doesn't have any power except for what it's stolen. It is all vampiric. And the races that are connected with this, have lost their true connection and can only feed and steal. So the minute we cut those energetic cords, we're I think we're more than ready, and we've been ready. And to understand the enormity of it, is also to break down, manipulations in some of the things that we might have invested in without throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It doesn't mean that Jesus or Christ isn't real. It's about understanding what happened to these scenes, what happened to these groups, what happened to these teachings that helps us to understand the power within us to be Christed individuals, to have divine union within ourselves, to walk in integrity, to walk the talk, and understand, the power of this planetary body and what the history is behind how this earth became what it is, with the 7 root races, with the planetary grids, all about, the restoration of our 12-strand DNA and how that's been hijacked in this duality, that once we break, we can begin to move through the seals and fences that are keeping that junk DNA alive, which is actually a treasure to be discovered. And I can't imagine that we're any more ready than that. There's too much trauma. There's too many people dying. There's too many people disabled and struggling with dis-ease. It's really their body retaliating to mind control and lies, because the body doesn't thrive under those conditions, and truth will set us free, and the body will follow and regenerate. So I think, people are crying out for this to happen, and I think we've way reached the tipping point, and it's time for the government to be starved and us to rebuild on our own terms and pull all the leaders and the people in these fields out of those places, encourage them so that we can pull our resources together. Yep. So anyway.
That sounds good. And now, Constance, you just put out a book where there is undisputable evidence of a extraterrestrial presence because it has pictures of stuff on the moon. There's structures, there's buildings. Anybody with at least their toe out of the box should be able to look at that and say, wait a minute, something's going on here. I'm ready for more.
Yeah, so it's been a very interesting thing talking about the whole moon anomaly situation because I think that's where I started talking about galactic mysteries, and I talked about it a whole lot. And so my moon's galactic history and its extraterrestrial connection looked at the evidence of there being entities on the moon, or one group or maybe several groups, whether or not the moon, we've all heard it, whether or not it was placed there artificially, is it a megastructure, what have you. But ultimately, I think that there's enough evidence on the moon to show that there were beings, if the moon was brought in, that there were beings on or inside this thing when it came. And the question that I posed was whether or not, if there were beings on the moon, if the moon was brought in, did they come to Earth? Does Earth have a connection with the moon where there literally was entities that left and came here? And also, did Earth have some sort of, once they came here and established themselves, if it were them, was the moon a part of Earth's territory? Because there's stories in our history that says that we, as you know, Lemuria and Atlantis, and in some of the Hindu texts, talks about the abilities for us to go back and forth to the moon. And they said the gods had the preference to go back and forth to the moon, and sometimes Earth people went with them. So, the question is was there an extraterrestrial connection? Is there still an extraterrestrial connection? Is it ancient? Is it recent? Are the structures on the moon that we see today a part of a city that is growing? Because if you look at some of the astronomers' research today, they said that it looks like there's, parking lots up there around the craters that look like ships are parked there full of lights. It looks like structures are going up. There's pipes, there's roads. But if you look at some of the older pictures, not ancient, coming out from the 60s, from the lunar orbiter, from the Apollo missions, if you believe they also showed that there were partial structures. A lot of those structures resembled some of the ancient structures on Earth. So there seems to have been a connection. I'm not sure now what your question was, Augie. I think I've
Well,
lost track.
I was looking for support of the fact that the disclosures already happened.
Well, yes. So the disclosure has happened. We've had our first contact, we've had our disclosure. For those of us in this research, we know there's someone on the moon. Someone, came in with the moon. The moon is not a natural satellite. So yes, we've had that disclosure. I talk about, for example, there was one astronaut who wasn't even on the moon. He was in a space shuttle. He said that he witnessed an extraterrestrial talking to a astronaut, and those two didn't see him. So somebody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And he said that the extraterrestrial was dressed in a space suit very similar to the astronaut. So yeah, there's been disclosure, but the extraterrestrials, as far as I'm concerned, I don't go, I guess, as deep as some of the other people. I'm a little bit more simplistic because I believe that the extraterrestrials are waiting for us to grow up. Now, where did I get that idea? I listened to the Andromedan ambassador, Alex Collier. I've been listening for him for years. And he said something that struck me. He said that the Andromedans told him that we are not allowed to know yet because they're waiting for humanity to grow up, that we're still a warring race. We're destroying the earth, all of the stuff that we've heard, but that's the problem. But they said there's a timeline when we are supposed to know. And if we don't stop what we're doing as far as, our nuclear weaponry and destroying the earth, and they're not going to let us destroy all life here. They said they may have to step up that timeline and show themselves to the masses on earth. And if we don't grow up, that there might be a consequence. Now, what struck me is, what the heck is that consequence they're talking about
Yeah.
if we don't grow up? So they're saying they're giving us a little bit more time. But as far as that, that 0.5%, I don't know. I feel like they're waiting for the masses on earth, in every corner of the earth, if we can, to know that they exist. And I agree with Ella that they are using sci-fi to educate us. It's kind of, become a thing. It's a well-known thing that they are using our science fiction, our social media, books, to educate us and get us ready for the idea that there's other life in the universe. One of those people, by the way, I love this story. I'm probably all of you have heard it. I talk about it all the time because I love Star Trek. So Gene Roddenberry is famously known to have sat in on channeling sessions by a woman named Phyllis Schlimmer, and she was channeling beings that were in space in Earth's vicinity. And these beings told her that they were from different worlds and that they were working together on this spaceship, on this crew. I guess it was for the Galactic Federation. I've also heard for the Ashtar Command. I'm not sure which of it they were, but they were working together to bring peace in the galaxy and kind of monitor. But the idea is that Gene Roddenberry famously created Star Trek from those channeling sessions. And it's interesting, if you look at the little Star Trek insignia, it does look like an A. So anyway, but so I'm sorry, Arky. His series is, worldwide known, and it has opened people's minds. And I think that they are waiting for more and more people to get to that point.
I just want to say that Constance is right about that. I actually sat in one of Phyllis Schlemmer's channeling sessions. So yes, Gene Roddenberry did. He used to visit once a week, and he got a lot of fodder that he used to put into the scripts. And I think what you were referring to, Constance, was she channeled the Council of Nine. That's what they called themselves. So, and that's where the idea for Deep Space Nine, which was one of the later Star Trek series, but that was actually produced after Roddenberry died because they took all his notes and then they put it together. But yes, he did get a lot of fodder, but he was also friends with two of the major admirals that were working on the secret space program, and they would feed him information and give him ideas to put all this future space tech into these scripts. What started out as Space Cowboys, that was, Star Trek's original idea, and then Lucille Ball got behind them, and she was the main producer, and then the Star Trek series took off. And there's 68 different technologies that was introduced in the original Star Trek that is now our reality. And they used to say, oh, it's science fiction. Well, they worked with scientists on, actual, real scientists to make sure that the scripts were viable, that it wasn't just fantasy, that even though it wasn't science that we knew yet, it was science that was future. And that's exactly what has happened. I mean, it's turned into, it became prophetic in a way, because our reality is, we have cell phones, we have those, doors that go back and forth. We have all kinds of, there's 68 different tech that was introduced in the original Star Trek that is our daily life now. So there's something to that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Dan, I see Dan.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
hi. I just wanted to say that the Office of Naval Intelligence, with Admiral Leslie Nielsen and Admiral Rickleboda, the U.S. Navy was working with the Galactic Federation for a long time and actually gave the script to Gene Roddenberry, and the Prime Directive is actually a real thing, and that is why I was, wondering for many decades why the extraterrestrials just don't reveal themselves, to everyone. Are they doing something sneaky? They don't want to, but it turns out that there actually is a non-intervention clause in the Prime Directive that until we reach a certain level that interstellar capability and the situation is that the Galactic Federation back in the beginning of 2023 gave a disclosure plan to the Earth Alliance, which consists of General Van Herk and others, that is supposed to be this brilliant, genius plan that would have to be, because we've all been under psychological warfare for decades. And I think that plan is unfolding.
Yeah.
I
While you're at the table, then you are also in touch with an extraterrestrial through a friend of yours, and you have been given some technology that is actually working. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I've seen the flying over the top of me, about 100 feet up, and I've had some ET interaction experiences that kind of led me into questioning the interface of geometry and consciousness. And so it led me to the research work with Dr. Marcel Vogel with crystals. And so I've done a lot of research on Elena Danaan, and her information has been right now I've done a page on the webmatrix.net that lists 24 corroborations of things that she has said brought through Thorhan, and then gets confirmed afterward. Things that there's no way you would be able to know, like certain planets that they've discovered later, or earthquakes on Mars, or Neptune's going to heat up all of a sudden. So their information's been very credible, and I have a team of scientists that I'm working with that I've been in communication with Thorhan's younger brother, who's a star maker, or that's the term they use for a terraformer, and he was going to university in the Pleiades. And so back in April of 2022, I started asking questions, and I was kind of blown away by so much information, corroborated so much with Dr. Marcel Vogel's work in the laboratory, but then took it up many notches higher. And so we're understanding the structure of the matrix and the densities and the multi-universe, and how the geometry within a crystal can open up a singularity wormhole that you can affect reality. And we're also produced well, here, just real quick, I'll do a slide, give everybody a chance to talk here. Let's see, where is the share screen? Oh, there it is. Okay, this is me back in 2001. Carl Wolf was talking about the bases on the other side of the moon that he visually saw. Donna Hare described how the astronauts were told to keep secret what was going on. This is Elena. This is Thorhan, her contact. This is Jan Hanaredian, who I've been communicating with via Elena for the last over 2 years. This experience I had with the being. Dr. Marcel Vogel, we're cutting crystals. It's a camera project I worked on that could tune backwards and forwards in time. Let's see, I'm going to go up here. What we've discovered is that the crystals, when they're cut in accordance with the lattice structure, they create a very interesting thing that happens with these two vortices that come together that are counter-rotating and opens up a phase conjunction node into the singularity. And what we were doing was, excuse the slides here going real quick. We created this, what's called a frill generator crystal. Frill is like the life force of the universe, and that we're using 2 coils of copper and silver that are wound opposite, and they're pulsing it at a particular frequency, and it's creating this energy, and it's how they actually power their planet. I did this presentation back last year and presented this technology for the first time on our planet. What happens is the two vortices come together and create what's called the eye of the crystal. Has to do with certain geometries. Let's see, bear with me. I don't have the slides organized here. This is how the spacecraft work with the torsion fields that are going in perpendicular to each other with this mercury plasma. Actually, the crystals are in the center core. And here's like in the flower of life, I just created this geometry. You can see the pyramid angle, 51.84, is the angle of the pyramid, and how pentagonal and hexagonal geometry fit together. It wasn't really a regular slide presentation, but so we're producing this technology that the frill can actually go in and it can heal your body because it removes disharmonics inside your body. And it can also be fed to irrigation lines that makes plants grow incredibly. There's a whole lot more to this that I can't cover in a short period of time, but it's been some amazing scientific information and insights onto, what these crystals are and how it interfaces with consciousness. And yeah, it's been exciting. I'm working with my science team, and we're putting together some technology, and hopefully can bring out some practical application technology that people can use and put to use on this planet, and also give credibility to my dear friend Elena Danan, who I know it sounds pretty controversial, some of the things that she's saying, but when you look into it, you can see there's a lot of credibility of what she's revealing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. And I wanted to hear from Grant also. We were talking before the show just a little bit about maybe he could talk, let us know a little bit about what he thinks the spiritual capabilities or knowledge that the extraterrestrials, at least some of them, may have.
Well, I think that's the main thing when you get into it, is that's what they're trying to get across. This is all, if you got to remember who you actually are. You are not the puppet on the stage. You are playing a puppet on the stage. You are actually a multi-dimensional being that has no beginning, no end, and you just came here to play a role. And that's the whole idea about figuring out what we are. Now, you have people talking about it now. A lot of experiencers, when you talk to them, they'll tell you all these messages. 54% are talked to about oneness and love, all this kind of stuff. But I want to make a comment about all this technology, because Wilbert Smith, the guy who ran the Canadian government program from 1950 to 1954, was dealing with an alien by the name of Alpha. And he also talked about the spiritual component to this thing, that consciousness was part of this thing. He said, this is what I mentioned, that the Americans told the Canadians that mental phenomena may be involved. This is 1950. They already understood this fact that mental phenomena was part of the flying saucer phenomena. And his communication was with an alien by the name of Alpha. And you get a lot of people. I remember I did the interview with Betty Andreasen, where her husband was very upset about the government watching them and into his computer and stuff. And I said, well, does your wife get downloads on how the craft flies? And he said, oh yeah, she draws all sorts of diagrams. I said, well, are you surprised the government's trying to figure out what's in your computer? They're trying to figure it out as well. So experiencers, a lot of experiencers are getting material. I talked to Tim Taylor, the NASA guy, and he talked about the 40 inventions that he had, the one that he put on the space shuttle. And I remember him telling me, and he made millions of dollars on this invention. And he told me that he said, you know, Grant, the last thing I remember the night before I woke up with that idea in my head, the last thing I remember that night was a hooded figure standing at the end of the bed. And I said, really? Could you see its face? And he said, no, I couldn't see its face. And he was very open about the fact, and his thing was to watch the experiencers, the people that are interacting with the intelligence, because the phenomena is telling us stuff. Wilbur Smith wrote a book called The New Science, and it was given to him, and he says quite clearly in the front of the book, and this is the guy that ran the Canadian government program, he said it was given to him by forces higher than us. It's not from this planet. And he dealt with this alien by the name of Alpha, and there was this whole idea about Alpha said, we will not interfere with what's going on in the world. The only time we'll ever step in is if there's a nuclear exchange. Other than that, and he said we could prove to the world that we could stop a nuclear exchange. And what Smith was told by this alien was we could take the moon in front of the entire world, split it in half, and put it back together in microseconds to prove that we could stop a nuclear exchange. Other than that, we will allow the human race to stew in its own juices. And I think that's one of the important things we got to realize. This is all about lessons. And in the end, it really doesn't really matter if we blow up the world, as long as we don't destroy, interfere with the rest of the universe. We have to learn our lessons, and the things that we're doing are lessons. And you get the beings are interacting over and over again. And I call it the theory of wow, and I will eventually do a book on it. And I say, why do UFOs fly around with lights on them? And it goes to almost like wherever this intelligence is, it's like you got the grade ones say, we have to make contact. We got to get into the minds of these people and change the consciousness. What should we do? And the grade one class says, well, let's fly around crafts with lights on them. We don't have lights on our crafts. Why do they have lights? They have lights so you can see them. They're trying to influence, they're trying to wake you up. And the same thing with crop circles. Why would you do crop circles? Why wouldn't you just come down and tell people what's going on? Because they want you to try to figure it out. They want you to figure it out. And I even said with the crop circles, or the mutilations, I said to Linda Howe, I said, Linda, you know why they take every last drop of blood out of the cow? And she said, no, why? I said, because they want you to go and take pictures. They want you to investigate this. And when you actually investigate it, you realize they're all downwind and downstream from nuclear power activities. They're sending messages, and they're indirectly doing it, but they're not going to land. As Bashar said, why would we land when everybody's crazy and everybody's got a gun? This is the whole idea, is that they're indirectly talking to us and giving us material. And there's a lot of people, if you take a look at the major researchers, Valet, Putoff, Eric Davis, Jim Semivan, they're all experiencers. They're all having these encounters, and they may complain about, oh, we had this encounter. Jim Semivan's all upset about the fact that these beings were in his bedroom or whatever. Well, he's the guy that took the story to the New York Times. So they're influencing these people. And once you get down the rabbit hole, you know what it's like. You can't get out, and you start talking about it. And what happens is when we all talk about it, more and more people talk about it, and the world starts to realize there's something going on, the consciousness rises. And it's like saying, when did gay marriage start? And everybody goes, well, I don't know, 20 years ago. I'm not really, it'll just flip. One day it'll flip and everybody will accept it. And that's what they're doing, this gradual acclimatization of people by flying crafts around, by doing weird things. And what the weird things are is what Gary Nolan, who's also an experiencer at Stanford, said it's the 95%. What they're doing is they're doing this stuff outside the bell curve. And Nolan said, I'm not interested in the 95% that's inside the bell curve. I'm interested in the 5% that falls outside the bell curve. Why is this paranormal phenomena happening? If you figure it out, that what they're trying to do is they're trying to shatter naive reality. They're doing these weird things that make people go, what is going on? How do they do that? And they're getting you to think, and eventually people will do it, because odd curiosity is what makes you move down the field. And that's all to me that they're doing. They're dragging us along. If they wanted to take over, they could land and take over. If they wanted to land and tell us a story, they're not. They're doing this indirect thing where they're making us figure it out, because it's the 5%, and that's where the Nobel Prizes are. When you try to figure out what's going on, and you realize the world is not the way we think it is. Even the 2022 Nobel Prize was given for spooky action at a distance. If that's true, the whole thing was, is there time and space? If there's no time and space, how big is the universe? We're assuming that there's time, there's space. We're assuming all sorts of stuff that's probably wrong. And that's what the paranormal phenomenon is saying. The world is not the way you think it is. If it was, this would not be happening. And they're doing these weird things to move you away from your preconceived notions of how the world works.
Yeah, Ella.
Hi. Well, I agree with you. And you remember that movie, Don't Look Up, a couple of years ago? Well,
Yeah.
look.
No.
Would this be a good time to share the screen to show the spaceships around the sun?
Yeah, around the sun, yes. That'd be good.
Christopher, I see you.
To dovetail what Grant was saying is that, this is another piece of our reality is all the space tech. And, this isn't secret. What I'm going to show you is not like, private, confidential. This is public. This is out there. And you can go anytime to any of the tech sites, the NASA, the LASCO coronagraph, the SOHO, the SETI, the GOES, all these different satellites are online 24/7 showing what's going on around the sun. So just, you can access it. Oh, I have to hit share. Right. Okay, there it is. So I see. Okay, are you seeing the whole thing or just the side thing? So this is the whole thing. Good. Okay, so that's these are actual photos harvested from the space telescopes. Okay, and what I'm showing here are planetary objects, exoplanets, because they're about size to scale about 8 to 10 times bigger than Jupiter. Okay, so they're huge, and they're showing up around the sun. That doesn't mean like they're right in the sun, but they're in the sun's space because we are in a binary system. So that's another thing that we all grew up thinking, oh, we only have one star, but binary stars are common in the universe. So as trinary. And Nemesis is the brown dwarf, which is a dead star. So that means it's not radiating, but it is it gets illuminated when our sun radiates its light on it, just like it illuminates Venus and Mars and all the planets in our. So when it comes around the sun, it looks like two suns. It looks like twin sunrises or twin sunsets. And we've been catching this in telescopes all around the planet. The further south you are, the better views you get. There's a observatory in Hawaii called the Wormwood Observatory, and they are tracking this. Also, the Vatican, of all the institutes on this planet that you would think it wants to control the disclosure narrative, never would I have thunk that it was the Vatican, but the Vatican is heavily involved in this research. They have 2 of the world's most sophisticated telescopes, and they are tracking Nibiru and aliens. One of them is in Mount Graham in Tucson, Arizona, and then the other one is on Vatican Hill in Rome. And they're controlled by 2 Jesuit priest astronomers. So that fits into Bible prophecy. I was just going to go through the slides so you can see. All of these are actual photos from the space telescopes. So they are looking at the sun in every hue, all the different colors, so that they're studying the sun, they're watching everything. I don't have I do have it on my this is just an illustration of this system that Nemesis is the brown dwarf, and it has 7 planets that orbit it, and we are seeing some of those planets intersect in our solar system. Now Nibiru is the one that's all the way out there, and it still hasn't arrived yet, but it's on its way. But it's like a parade of stuff, of space junk that precedes it, and Earth is going to end up in its path. So the debris tail is what it's called, and it's just full of all kinds of asteroids and comets and meteorites and fireballs. And this is was written in stone in the ancient Sumerian tablets. So I knew Zachariah Sitchin. I got to interview him in 1995, and then I studied with him, and then I started getting into all of his material about it. And here's a piece, in terms of conspiracy and disclosure stuff, is that him and the NASA a chief astronomer back then, Robert S. Harrington, they both had a meeting, and Harrington was basically going based on what the space telescopes were telling him, and Sitchin was coming from the ancient records from the past. And anyone who knows Zachariah Sitchin, he's written 12 books called The Earth Chronicles, and his first book was called The 12th Planet, which was basically about Nibiru. And the reason why they called it the 12th planet is because the Anunnaki, who came from Nibiru, they counted the planets from the outside in. We count from the inside out, from the sun, and like we're the third rock from the sun, but they counted from the outside. So then there were all these shenanigans that went on recently, I'm sure you all know, where they demoted Pluto. Well, Pluto's now starting to get reinstated again, but the reason that they did it was to cover up this system. So now they've just come out recently with, yes, there's another planet at the edge of our solar system, and they're calling it Planet 9, because they've been trying to, discredit, disconnect from the past. And let's face it, they've been doing that for centuries. The Roman, what I'm showing here is, everything you see in blue and red are all from the space telescopes. I just connected it because to me it looks like the Death Star, and because it has a hole in it. But what we are seeing were two. There were two of them that showed up around the sun, and we're seeing this on a regular basis. This planet eclipses our sun every 28 days, and they know about it. So they have gone to great lengths and spent tons of money to put all this tech up there to cover up these eclipses. So what happened on April 8th, when the whole world was watching the solar eclipse from the new moon, was there was another planet that eclipsed the sun. And I have that video. I don't have it right here. It's on my Facebook. Anyone can go and look. It's tagged, like kind of pinned there. But what you're seeing in the stereo behind is you see the moon go over the sun, and you can see the video and the timestamp. So that was the moon. And then like about an hour or so later, another planet eclipses the sun, but it's coming from a different direction. Okay, so the moon didn't do an about face. The moon didn't reverse itself and go one way and then go the other way. It was another planet that eclipsed the sun on April 8th. So, this is where the truth is stranger than fiction, because we were introduced to the binary system through Star Wars. And isn't it a coincidence, if there is such a thing, that today's astronomers are now calling these planets Tatooine planets after Star Wars? So when they see when they see planets and binary systems, they're calling them Tatooine planets. So this was my spiel that I was sharing earlier about the connection between the presidents, and I didn't actually finish. I went as far as Obama, and I said, well, he was petitioned by the all these different organizations to disclose Nibiru during his presidency, and he said no. So I don't have to go over who he is, where he's from. the whole program he was involved in growing up, and the CIA and the Mars jump room and all of that. That's, I'm sure all of you know that. But he basically said no. So, he did not want to disclose anything. And then, of course, his earmark, uh, you know, bill was the Obamacare bill, which was like, 3 feet thick. And if everyone remembers that famous part where, Nancy Pelosi came out to the media and they all said, "What's in the bill? What's in the bill?" And she said, "Well, we don't know. We have to pass it first before we can read it." Remember that? So
Mm-hmm.
was in that bill was he had rolled over the EOs to cover up Nibiru and continue with this program that was started in the 80s, that had to do with the global warming and to retard the warming and to chemtrail the skies and to put all this tech up in space to try to, change. But we have evidence, and I think Dan had mentioned something about, I don't know, one of your experiences that they saw that there was that Neptune was warming. Well, I can confer that that is true because we have seen that all the planets on in this solar system uh, are experiencing some type of climate change, and that's because of perturbations from this system. So this is the picture, the one on the top, the purple with the green hue, and that came from NASA's IRIS, the Interface Region Imaging Spectrograph, that was shown to Ronald Reagan in 1982 and 83, and that's when the EO got started. And that's what I'm basically describing here and how that got thrown together. But oh, I'm sorry, I distracted myself and I didn't finish telling you what happened after the Obamacare bill went through. So all of that was wrapped up. You know how they wrap up pork and they put all these things in these bills and nobody really knows what it is. But when it started to unravel was when Trump got into office. And remember his promise, what he said he was going to do on day one, and he did it, was to unravel and dismantle Obamacare. And once he did that, up came Nibiru. Reagan had even gone so far as to make it like to delete Nibiru out of the dictionary. I mean, this is a historical. Nibiru is a historical name that is Sumerian, but all the cultures of our planet have called it different names. So like the Greeks called it Hercules, the Hebrews called it the destroyer, the Chinese call it the red dragon, but he went so far as to delete that name. And when you look at Google Sky, there are things in Google Sky that when he did this EO, you couldn't even see this part of the sky. They were blacking it out. But now, after Trump kind of dismantled all this, now it's kind of come out because they haven't put that back together again. So that's why we're talking about it. And that's why it's not illegal anymore. And then they were killing scientists. They were doing all kinds of horrible things. But this is my kind of thing that I was sharing earlier about disclosure and Nibiru. So we're not only seeing planets, we're seeing spaceships. We're seeing these huge, gigantic motherships show up around the sun. I mean, we know that there's planets. We have our planets, Mercury and Venus, but there's all these other planets and moons and these huge spaceships. And these spaceships, here, this is just to show you all the tech that's up there. And that's not everything, but that's like a handful.
It looks really busy. It looks really busy up there.
Yeah,
Thank
very,
you so
very
Ella,
busy.
that's
Yeah,
amazing.
okay, cool. That's enough.
Yeah, thank you.
I got
And then
to.
thank you. Just before we finish up, I kind of wanted to jump to a little bit of a different track, and that would be the consciousness, the spiritual, the soul track. Whether we talk about ours or whether we talk about theirs, right? what is the role, right, of our consciousness and our spirit and our soul, or theirs, right, in making a better outcome or creating more of what we want? Ella,
Yeah. Oh, I gotta hit this. I'm sorry. I wear bifocals. Oh, thank you. You did it.
I got it. Yeah.
I'm a little challenged if I got bifocals.
Okay.
You're talking about soul trap? You're saying soul trap?
Yeah, no, yes, I'm talking about consciousness, soul, spirit. What role does that play in all of this, whether we're talking about ours or theirs? I just would love to go down that path.
I'll just say a few words. I feel our soul is what is our journey that we bring with us, and we have bleed throughs or things that come up from the past, and it's really how we're able to allow our ego and our mind to just kind of live on a deeper level and do that sort of deeper inner work and be soul centered. I feel that's the 5D energy, is being more soul centered, moving out of 3D, which is personality matrix, the world of appearances. When we're soul centered, we're already there, and we're able to access the realm of spirit and be guided by that higher intelligence that I feel our higher self is connected to. And the work of integration allows us to really anchor that and ground that in the physical plane, so that whatever forces out there want to separate us from that and remove us from intuition and our higher mind and our sort of ascension process, which to me is all about advancement, but it's really about waking up what already is, what's dormant in our DNA, what is, already encoded in us, that life gives us enough experiences to begin to, unlock. And I think all the life events that we go through are opportunities, but it's been hijacked in a way so that we give our power away to something outside of ourselves, to either drug it, to mask it, to define it, to label it. And we get further and further away from our soul, our intuition, and our ability to really, progress. And I feel transhumanism is to separate the soul energy from the human body. And a lot of species are looking to regain that because they lost it. They lost their capacity to really pay attention to it. And I feel it's the vehicle, body, mind, spirit integration, soul awareness, finding soul-centered friends, soul mates, living on a soul-centered level is where you're going to appreciate life's journey and all the adversities, and you gain wisdom and more awareness of all that you are instead of all that you're not, or more disconnect because somebody else is defining it for you. I feel that that's why we go through these challenges, is to unlock these dormant treasures and abilities that have been dormant, but it's very taken advantage of. So the more soul-centered we are, the more we're going to be able to move away from all of that, think for ourselves, be free thinkers, and as elemental beings, we'll notice that what we're able to clear on the inside will reflect on the outside, and we'll really move out of this duality in this very toxic kind of world. Because I feel spirit is the great alchemizer, and it holds dominion over physical matter. And that's where miracles come from. That's where amazing abilities within ourselves to recognize like we can really overcome anything and be that override frequency and dismantle dark technology through the power of spirit, our consciousness, and our soul connection with ourselves.
Mhm.
I love that. That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Geraldine, you have had close contact, close extraterrestrial contact. Have they given any indication to you about their spiritual knowledge?
No, but rather, much like Laura was mentioning, how this is very much an internal uh, process. I mean, you know, we need to understand kind of the nature of this reality in which we very much project and co-create this reality, this shared experience, the world, all of the things, all the good, all the bad, everything from the military elements of this realm to the highest ascended masters and light beings are all kind of an interconnected network of consciousness that emerges from you. So I think it's really important for the human to go inside, as we were mentioning today, and work on that development to become a conduit of source and anchor that source consciousness into the body, into the earth,
Yeah.
so that we can move timelines into something that is collectively healing. And it's very important that we do that now as we have wars going on in the world that are growing. The more we go into that mentality, that hypnosis of disempowerment, disconnect, forget who we are, the activation of memory, as Laura was mentioning, is one of the most important things. You have to remember who you are, and it requires you to begin to activate that dormant DNA by sitting in meditation. And that meditation work of remembering that you are in your dream state, becoming lucid every single night, become lucid so that you can begin to recover the memories of what you're doing when you're out of body experiences. And so that you cultivate that self mastery in lucidity in waking state, so that you can become a co-creator in this waking state, in this dream waking state, and also in the other dream states in which we are interacting. We are making choices, we are making agreements that pull humanity forward in ways that we quite not understand yet. A lot of people begin to wake up consciousness in the middle of seemingly traumatic memories of experiences, wars, interdimensional experiences, not realizing the kind of agreements that we make through our everyday choices that participate in parasitism, both interdimensionally and in the physical realm. So I think that we also need to mature as humans in order to understand the responsibility that is required to be a conscious co-creator in many dimensions. And I think this is something that was imparted to me by the beings as they demonstrated and showed me how the matrix functioned, but also embodied through my work as, as I do my own internal healing, and I see in my clients as well. So this is something that we can all actively apply today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and Grant.
I'd like to comment on this because I think this is exactly what it is. The famous physicist John Wheeler, who was the intellectual successor to Einstein at Princeton, said there is no out there out there. This is a participatory universe. You have to go within to go without. It's all Maya. It's all consciousness. It's all an illusion. And it's whatever you vibrate with. So if you vibrate at a low level, you're going to pick up low level stuff. And if you go do as I did 2 books on Mission Rama people, and I say the Mission Rama people have this thing where you raise your vibration to interact, and the beings lower their vibration. And they spend a whole 2 days meditating, oming, praying, and it goes on and doing yoga, and you sit on the side of a mountain and do this for 2 days, and then the contact takes place. And that's the whole idea, is we are in charge, that we are not victims. We are manifesting what happens around us. Seth, all the major channelers have said this. Seth said, you manifest everything around you. There is no other rule. We are responsible for what's happening to us, and it's all about vibration. You cannot go into heaven and until you vibrate at that level. But we are in a situation where whatever we're picking up is what we're vibrating. It's like a tuning fork that we just pick up wherever we are, and it's up to us to realize who we actually are. We are not physical beings. We are eternal beings who are taking on a physical body to learn lessons.
Yeah, and I think John Wheeler was the one that coined one of the cornerstones of quantum mechanics, and that is that he said, we cannot imagine a universe without us observing it. With other words, if we're not observing it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah,
There are
and that's I think what's part of the big the stuff that the government, whoever's in charge, I wouldn't say it's the government, the people that control this know this. As I said, in 1950, they already said, we were told by American officials that other things are associated with the flying saucers, such as mental phenomena. They knew this in 1950. They knew they had a live alien that was talking in their heads, and they knew. And that's what they may not want you to know, is the fact that there is no physical world. It's all vibration, and everything you believe is probably going to be wrong, because we base all our stuff on what we perceive. We think the world is flat because it looks flat. We think the sun goes around the earth because it looks like that way. Everything that we perceive is going to be wrong. Everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why we can clearly say we live in a mind-created universe, because James Gates, a physicist also, he says when we look deep in the equations explaining the fabric of space, we find computer language. We didn't put it there, but it shows up. And that's how the universal mind maybe expresses itself in our illusionary existence as computer language so we can understand it.
Yeah, and I'm doing a book now that has all these crossovers. The best example of the spiritual component to UFOs is my friend Ron Johnson, who's a Mormon out of Utah. He told me that his being, whose name is Elby, took him to the spirit world. He was with his mother in the spirit world, and she took him and she said, "Ron, when you die, you're going to go to this building." And he said it looked like a little tiny temple, a Mormon temple. And she said, "When you die, you're going to go in this room." And then he said to me, he says, "My mother, who is, and this is as real as a real experience." He said, "My mother took me into the building." He said, "You know what, Grant? It was like 100 times the size inside as it was outside." And I said, "Hey, like, was he in a UFO?" Because that's the big thing that's now revealed about the UFO, that the UFO is 30 feet on the outside, as Chris Bledsoe told me. It's the size of a football stadium inside. And then, so I'm thinking to Ron, like, are you in a spirit world inside a Mormon temple, or are you in a UFO? And you see these crossovers over and over again, or they start talking about his mother showing him crystals, where you look in the crystal at a certain angle and you can see the history of the world. You see all these crossovers and you realize it's all the same thing. It's just taking different ways of expressing this world and the consciousness that interacts with it.
Yep. Gosh.
We've got about 10 minutes left. So how about if we just go around and just take a few minutes, each of you, and whatever is, kind of bubbling up for you that you'd like to talk about. You can talk about yourself, your site, your work, whatever it is. We'll just go around so everybody can experience each of you personally one more time. And we'll start with Geraldine, please, up in the upper left-hand corner.
Hi, yes, thank you. It was a very, very great honor to be here. Amazing conversation and very important discussions. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and I work a lot with experiencers. If you're an experiencer and you would like to learn more about that, particularly in the integration process of your experiences, very happy to be of service. And also, I have a YouTube channel, Geraldine Orozco, which I have lots and lots of free content on these topics of the application of trying to activate your higher faculties. So please do reach out to me. I'm going to also be speaking at many conferences this year. You can find that on my website at Geraldine Orozco. And thank you so much, everybody. It was an honor to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So good. And then we've got Ella. Ella?
Oh, hi. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been real. It's been great and good to get to know some of you and meet you for the first time, and find out all that we have in common. So that warms my heart. And you were talking about the soul, and I have to agree with Laura that we do have to cultivate our soul relationships, especially with the creator of our soul. And that's kind of what my work points to, is to help people to get back to that, because religion has wounded so many people and turned them off of who the creator is and who God is and who Yeshua is. And so, that's my humble attempt to help in that regard. Discerning the Great Spirit, Holy Spirit versus the religious spirit, which is the counterfeit. And that's what's held a lot of people in bondage and vampirized and all of that. So, the battle is real, over our minds, our souls, our bodies, and we have to just press on and connect with the Lord, because what is happening around us is bigger than us. It's bigger than us. So we can't do it all by ourselves.
That's right.
So if anyone wants to see the rest of the presentation that I was sharing, it's on my YouTube, and I'm also going to be sharing it on Thursday night with Dan Harari, Paranormal Tonight. So you can go to my Facebook or my YouTube to see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ella. So good. Christopher, hi.
Hello,
Any
and
Yeah.
it's been a fantastic evening, and I want to say thank you to everybody. If you look back at how far we've came over the years in the field of ufology and just in life in general, having been taken aboard a craft numerous times, one thing I have learned is that when you look at life in the past and look at life in the future, it's all the same. It's just a matter of how we perceive it. And if we could all switch our thoughts and minds in the world to more of just a steady positivity and peaceful harmony, I do believe they would come down and they would reveal themselves much sooner because they have told me that we were all one cohesive unit. We just need to get on the same page.
Beautiful.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Thank you, Dan Willis.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting. My perspective is, back in 2021, the regressive extraterrestrials have been removed from our planet. It's a matter of our civilization taking care of cleaning house on its own planet. Then we'll be able to possibly join the Galactic Federation of Worlds and be able to receive the benefits of the technologies like the med beds and all of this. But I agree with Laura. It's the inner work that we have to do, each of us, because we're all each a fractal in this matrix, what Jenhan calls this planetary matrix, that it's like this morphogenic field. Each one of us is affecting it. And the more of us become awake and aware and raise our frequency, the more it affects this interconnected web that we're all connected with. And I've been getting so many wonderful insights from the scientist who's currently on Mars, doing terraforming operations, that it resonates with me that we're all fractals of Source, and Source is dual in nature, and each one of us are, dual in nature, and therefore we're each creative, and that there's infinite number of dimensions or universes, you could say, and each one of these have different densities. In this particular dimension that we're in, we have 12 densities, with the 13th as Source, and that it's what in the ET interaction with a being back in 1977 basically confirmed what Jenhan has recently shared with me, and that through love is, if you look at it from a scientific term, it's like the bonding force of the universe. It's through love we move from one vibrational density up to the next, closer to Source, which is closer to perfection. And
that's good.
And that's my perspective.
Yep. Thank you, Dan.
Dan, it was so good seeing you. And Constance, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I've sort of made it my mission to educate people on the idea of that we're not alone in the universe, that we are being visited, that we have been visited since the beginning, and I'm hoping to reach those that are seeking more information and kind of dumbing it down, so to speak, and not so that they won't run when I kind of give it to them, and I try to give it to them in small pieces. There are people that do come to me and ask questions, and so I'm trying to give them the answers. I suggest to the audience to do your own research, read the book. There's so many great books out there, so much wonderful information. Some of it is straight from extraterrestrials that have channeled books. Just do your research. You'll learn a lot. And, check out my book, Earth's Galactic History and Its Extraterrestrial Connection.
Okay, thank you.
Constance. Grant, any closing thoughts real quick?
Yeah, okay. The bottom line to me is oneness versus separation. I say all that is considered to be evil in the modern world is created by one thing and one thing only, the mistaken belief in separation. I'm most interested now in the nature of reality. I'm studying now comas. I'm about to interview the guy who's just put out a very interesting book on comas. And you get people in there that will tell the same sort of story as UFO. They say this was not, I was spent 100,000 years. This was not an illusion. This was not imagination. This happened to me as real can be. And so that's the kind of thing where it comes down to this thing of the nature of reality. How does reality actually work? Is there a physical world? Is it made out of consciousness? And I'm starting to put a lot of my books. I keep getting dragged into the disclosure thing, but I'm putting a lot of my books on my blog site, which is White House UFO at White House UFO blog. If you look that up, I'm putting portions of my book on there, and I try to do the consciousness, because I think that's the key to the whole thing. That's the message I got, which came with absolute certainty. It was clear as could be that this is the bottom line of this whole thing, and that was after 35 years of investigation and suddenly woke up to figure out what was going on. But that's where I am, and I think that's where this mystery will all end. It's not what you think it is. It's going to be all one thing. It's all consciousness, and we're all divine, and everything is perfect. That's the other message that I've gotten and I've written about quite a bit, that everything's exactly the way it's supposed to be.
That's great. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Laura.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always wonderful to be on these panels. My website's cosmicguide.org, and I try and keep it as updated as I can as far as what I'm up to and what I'm doing. And yeah, I'm all about recognizing that we can de-weaponize the weaponry, and we can override all these things that might cause us fear, might make us feel victimized. I mean, how can we leverage a lot of the planetary alignments and understand them so that we can consciously and mindfully go through the growth periods that they represent, and also how that impacts our own chart, and how a lot of these events and alignments are inverted into a psyops or some form of disempowerment that really throws humanity and individuals into a survival or fear response that they end up getting a little bit stuck in, and end up looking outside of themselves for a solution. And how can we still assist one another and help one another, and move away from the dependency bond, that the inverted system holds, and where we might have fallen prey to that in any sort of way. How can we begin to deprogram and dismantle ourselves from it using the awareness of astrology, herbal knowledge, and all the different ways to regenerate and understand what this window period is all about and what's available to us, which is really liberating, and a reunion with ourselves. It's not about adopting another belief system. It's really about being true to yourself and moving through these different growth periods in a way that will remind you that it's all leading to something really beautiful. And no matter how difficult it seems, that's just a process of the transformational journey, and to just unhook from anything vampiric, and claim your sovereignty, and then come together in unity consciousness, and let's blend our differences and know that diversity and harmony is true oneness. And it's okay that we don't always think the same, but let's look at the puzzle pieces and what we're putting together to rebuild that 12-strand DNA and repair this planetary grid network.
Sounds good. Yep.
Beautiful.
There are solutions, and if we don't think we have the solution, we lean on somebody, and we all have experienced that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Augie. Thank you, Mac. It was such a beautiful evening. I'm so grateful. I have to see you all again next time. Thanks, everybody. Much love. Take care.
Thank you.
Namaste.